Hey there! To have a little bit of a break from my large-scale projects, I decided to join a game jam again. To fit the season, I chose the Secret Santa Jam, where each participant receives a Santa letter from another participant and gets to make a game based on that description. So essentially you make and receive one personalized game. I thought it's a really cool idea, so I joined, and when it started on November 19, I received my letter. So while I won't read the exact letter to respect my giftees' privacy, the main takeaway was that they liked a snow and winter theme, experimental gameplay or features, and music in general. I knew right away I wanted to go strong on the snow and winter theme to get in proper Christmas mood. I also intended to compose an original soundtrack. The experimental gameplay part took a bit longer to figure out. I brainstormed some pretty crazy ideas, but after a while I decided to tone it down a bit and settled for a rather mildly innovative idea. My final concept was a 2D platformer where you fly around with your jet engine sleigh, collect items, wrap them in presents at your home base, and deliver them to the right houses. All this before Christmas Eve is dawning. I wanted to combine janky physics-based platforming with logical deduction elements of figuring out who lives where and what is their wish. So with that I got to work and set up the bare bones 2D platformer stuff. Since I'm obsessed with making 2D platformers, I naturally had quite a bit of that ready to be reused. I also choose to use a similar art style to my game Summit, because that's what I can probably do best in the short amount of time with my limited art skills. So after a bit of tinkering with my platformer engine, creating the main character, including some basic animations, and adding a basic jetpack mechanic, I had the basics set up and was confident I could make a fun game in no time. Let's see. One of the core mechanics was to carry around and deliver items and presents, so I implemented a simple carry mechanism which just parents a carryable item to the player while holding a certain button. I also wanted to be able to throw the item in a certain direction on release, so I added a force in the player's analog stick direction, in addition to transferring the current movement velocity of the player to the released item. I added the high-tech sleigh, adjusted the mass values of my items a bit, and as a result was already able to ship around presents with my sleigh. Physics-wise, everything was pretty janky, but hey, that's the fun part about game jams, or I guess physics systems in general. It doesn't have to be polished to perfection in order to be fun. Next, I created Santa's home base, including the packaging machine, which I wanted to be more detailed than necessary, so I included a conveyor belt, a stomper animation, and a color changer to select wrapping paper and ribbon color. The final part for a successful present delivery was a house with a chimney, so I made some decent looking houses, put a one-way edge collider on the roof, and a simple trigger on the chimney to detect incoming presents. At this stage, I wanted to proceed with the design of my village. For the look, I decided to go with a relatively standard snow-covered alpine-style village, just like it would look in my area. I added some cute snow particle effects and built a basic terrain using Unity's sprite shapes, a tool which I haven't used until then, and which I learned is an incredibly easy way to build an organic environment with very little effort. I also thought about the inhabitants of the village and ended up making mostly kids, because they will be the recipients of your presents and they will tell you useful things. Each kid lives in a house in the village, which you have to figure out by dialogue or visual clues. For instance, one kid talks about her dad being the local baker, so you can search for the house that looks like a bakery. Next, I created the UI and systems for the wish list, which lists each kid's name alongside their wished item. Initially, I wanted the wish list to be randomly generated to increase replayability value, maybe even have some roguelike elements like changing certain properties for the villagers and the village itself, but I went a little overboard with that and decided to scrap it. So in order to find out where to deliver the presents, the player has to find out where the kids live, mostly through speaking to the NPCs standing around in the village. For that I implemented a very basic dialogue system which just loops through a list of text messages that are defined on each NPC game object. Since the NPCs won't tell you their names directly, you may have to combine a few pieces of information to get from the name on the wish list to the house they live in. If the player either completes all wishlist items or if the timer runs out, the ending sequence is triggered. Day turns into night, for which I've utilized the 2D lighting systems. Concretely, I'm turning down the global light, plus I have a script which changes the light color or material color on certain objects, plus I'm enabling the lantern lights in town. Then the camera slowly pans over the village, while my own arrangement of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" plays. After that there is a little sequence where each item on the wish list is evaluated, and finally the game tells you if you've succeeded or not and in what time. Finally, I started up my DAW and keyboard to produce some quick Christmassy themes. I think the first time I dabbled in this genre. Since I haven't been composing a lot of music lately, I decided to do 4 tracks, one for each area and one for the ending sequence. The deadline for the jam was December 19, so with a month of time, this was obviously on the more generous and relaxing side of things compared to other game jams with the usual 2-day crunch. But overall, this was a really nice little side project during the holiday season, and hopefully I was a decent Santa. If you want to play the game, it's available for free on itch.io, and there's a link in the description. Have fun, and till next time!